Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Justin Meyerhofer, Vice President of External Affairs at TVA. What a great day it is in Knoxville, Tennessee. Glad to see everybody, and thank you to all of our guests for coming and attending our news conference here. We're delighted to have a couple of special guests with us today who spent a little bit of time at TVA. And as you all know, we love to host here at TVA, and there ain't nothing like Southern hospitality, right? So delighted to see all of you, and certainly glad to have our special guests with us today. And we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to invite our Chief Operating Officer, Mike Skaggs, up to the podium. He's going to provide a few remarks. Then he's going to introduce Mr. Cuccinelli from the Department of Homeland Security, who will then introduce somebody that everybody knows in this crowd, Congressman Tim Burchett. And then we'll go on from there. So appreciate y'all coming, and we'll get started now. Mike Skaggs.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Justin. Thanks for being here today. Deputy Secretary Cuccinelli, thanks for coming. We had a great time up in the River Forecast Center, talking a little bit about TVA and the fun facts associated with TVA. Thank you for coming, Congressman Tim Burchett, and thanks, Gay, for coming, Gay Henson. So we're honored to have you all. We love visitors. We like showing off. We like talking about TVA and the great things that we're trying to do and that we're doing each day. And, you know, the visit gave me a great opportunity to do things I like to do, which is talk about our employees also. We have great employees, and they go around the valley each and every day doing great things for the valley and great things for our stakeholders. And despite the challenges of the pandemic for this past year, our employees have continued to deliver the vital services and support across the region, like reliable power, transmission system reliability, and safety performance. Our employees are on the job every day. They operate our generating stations, they control the river flows, they restore the power after we have storms that go through and knock our system down, and they help the region's economy continue to recover, and most importantly, they keep the lights on. TVA's historic mission of service is widely known and well documented, and that mission of service is just as relevant today as it was 90 years ago. TVA is the nation's largest public power provider and one of the top producers of electricity, and we're quite proud of the performance that we provide each and every day, and it gets a little bit better each day. TVA, we supply the power that 2 million people use on a 24-hour a day, 7 days a week basis, and we operate one of the largest and most reliable transmission systems in the nation. And just a fact about that, 16,240 miles of circuit that we provide. We operate the 3rd largest nuclear fleet in the nation, and it produces clean, reliable energy on a daily basis. We're a leader in the renewables in our region, and I also manage a complex river system that spans 7 states and prevents potential flood damage and creates billions of dollars of economic contribution every year. Over 11,000 miles of shoreline, which creates $1 billion per that shoreline, or 13 billion per. We implement an economic development program recognized as one of the most effective in the industry. And over the past 5 years, TVA has worked to attract or retain more than 350,000 jobs, $44 billion in capital investment in the Tennessee Valley. Our 10,000 employees work together to deliver these results for the people of the Tennessee Valley. So just a little bit about our employees. They do a great job. We have great partners in our unions. We have great partnerships with our employees, and that partnership leads us to great performance, in my opinion. And they make up the backbone of TVA, and they give us the ability to serve the Tennessee Valley. And it's my pleasure to be able to serve them and work for them, as well as being able to work together to make things better for us. So for the last 87 years, TVA's mission has been able to serve the people in the Valley, and TVA is honored to continue that commitment today. We want to make and work hard to make the Valley a better place to live, work, and raise a family, and I'm proud to be among them and serve with them, and thanks for coming today. And now I'm going to introduce the senior official performing the duties of the Deputy Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, King Cuccinelli.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the welcome. Certainly, I've been the beneficiary of Southern hospitality. I have a little bit of a bias toward it as to begin with, but it's good to see you all here. Good to see you, Glenn, Gay, and Congressman. And for those of you who don't know me, as I told these guys inside, before I went to the dark side, went to law school, I was an engineer. And so I have a great deal of appreciation for what they do here every day, and on an incredible scale, just enormous, touching 7 states and over 10,000 employees helping to do that. And when I was Attorney General in Virginia, I dealt with our energy system. And one of the things I zero in on is the importance to that long-term, low-cost, reliable energy to the poor. The poorer you are, the bigger a part of your budget energy is. And so the drive to keep costs low and reliable, because you got to do it year after year, is really a drive to make one of the two things that operate that same way. The poorer you are, the bigger part of your budget. The other one is food. But in the energy space, TVA's efforts in that regard really go a long way to serve those who need it the most. And when you think about economic development, I think about it the same way. You know, low-cost, reliable energy is a huge competitive advantage, tremendous competitive advantage in an economic environment. But the people who benefit the most from that are also the poor, the people at the margins of economies that need that job created, that need to be there to be able to compete for it. So TVA has a lot to say about the quality of life, not just in those 7 states, but it affects others. And I bring greetings from President Trump, who very much appreciates the drive TVA has put on the Buy American, Hire American front, particularly recently. And one of the things we were talking about is their efforts not only within TVA, but even in their purchasing. COVID has made us all very sensitive of supply chains. And TVA recently made sure that some turbines they're buying, which are enormous and expensive parts of their system, from GE were onshored, as the president would call it, from overseas back to New York for production. Now, it's not in the Tennessee Valley, but now they're buying from American workers, whereas 3 of those turbines were going to be made overseas. And that was through TVA's effort and their affirmative efforts. It didn't just happen with GE. GE was accommodating to that request, but TVA had to instigate it. And that's worth 90,000 labor hours, American labor hours. That's 45 people working per year in the Schenectady area. And that doesn't even count all the follow-on subcontractors and suppliers that participate with GE there. So we've done that there. And we also, of course, have talked about the efforts the president has made on the Hire American front. And TVA has been moving in that direction too, going systematically through their contractors and their systems to make sure that for any position, whether they're directly hiring among their 10,000 or so employees, or it's one of their 12,000 or so contractors, that they're being more certain than ever before that those are not being occupied by foreign nationals, but by Americans. The only exceptions to that is where you truly have those sorts of unique skills that are one-time only type of efforts, where a very small number of people around the world can bring that to bear. And the president doesn't want to get in the way of that. When he barred temporary foreign workers in June for the rest of the year, he made explicit exceptions for exactly those kinds of circumstances. But otherwise, he wants to make sure, as we bring this greatest economy in the world back from the COVID punch we all took together, that American workers are going to be the first hired, whether it's directly here at TVA or whether it's their contractors. And we appreciate TVA's partnership, I know the president does, in making that happen and in continuing that on into the future. So a lot of good news here today. Win-win-win for TVA, for TVA's employees, and for America outside of TVA because of how they're doing business now. And that's something that we appreciate, particularly for an entity like the Tennessee Valley Authority that has such an enormous impact across a big part of the United States of America. This is not some small undertaking here. It is one of the biggest in the whole country. And so those impacts and that leadership, which is what the president looks for as well, is so important to moving farther down and more effectively down those paths of buying American and hiring American, all while accomplishing their missions of providing long-term, low-cost, reliable power to everybody in the Tennessee Valley, but also in being a partner in spurring economic development here and beyond the Tennessee Valley. And you probably don't get a lot of thank you notes from Schenectady, New York. Where's the mayor? And he probably doesn't see a whole lot of that, right? Congressman, I'm sure you don't. It's not the first thing you get from New York. But nonetheless, whether you're sitting in Tennessee, California, New York, those are our fellow Americans, and those are people the president wants to see have as much work as we can give them, all rationally happening in a way that grows America's economy with creation of opportunity for American workers, every single one, no matter where they live in America. And someone I've talked to about that subject, I'm going to introduce. I know he feels very strongly about this as well as your Congressman, Tim Burchett, has been a strong supporter of these sorts of policies. And, he and the president, I would say, are in vehement agreement on these sorts of things. And not to say there aren't others, but on the subject of today, Congressman, it's a pleasure to introduce you and to be with you again.
Thank you all very much for allowing me to be here. It's an honor to join you, Secretary Cuccinelli, and good folks here at TVA. Mike Skaggs, thank you, brother. Gail, thank you, man, representing working people. I, on the other hand, am the 435th most powerful man in Congress, and as you know, we don't do much work. So thank you for what you all do for every day. And I often say East Tennessee's biggest asset is our people. Our community is full of good, hardworking folks that just want to earn a living for their families. When I was Knox County Mayor, and I'm proud to say, Mayor Glenn Jacobs, I was just going to say something nice about him, but I think he left. But anyway, he's my friend, and I appreciate the good work he's done. We partner with a lot of local groups to expand economic development and promote job growth in our community. And as one of East Tennessee's federal representatives, I'm very focused on maintaining our strong economy and job market by working with regional employers like TVA. So thank y'all for what you do. When I was at the White House in August with the President and the Vice President and several fine working people there, I raised some concerns with President Trump about the visa programs that were costing American working folks their jobs. And the President shared my concerns, and he did privately with me as well. And TVA did the right thing by reversing their decision to outsource these jobs, and I applaud this decision. I think the press needs to know it was under a prior TVA administration that those policies were put into place, and that this current administration, I believe, saw the error and made the proper correction. So I really do appreciate them, and I appreciate their friendship. And I also appreciate the far-reaching impacts this new rule has had on incentivizing employers to keep their American workers instead of replacing them with foreign ones. I think now, I mentioned supply chain, but other things. I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and we talk a lot of times about the energy and just how vital it is to our country and how it is in national security, that it is vital that those jobs remain here as much as possible. Of course, this job is going to protect the jobs and wages of millions of hardworking Americans. It's great to see this administration prioritizing American jobs and standing up for our workers. Thank you once again to Secretary Cuccinelli for your work on this issue, and I hope you enjoy your time in Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District, where I often state, and it's the truth, the only place in America where people do not speak with an accent. So thank you, brother, for being here, and we're so pleased that you could be here joining these folks. Thank you, and turn it back over to Mr. Skaggs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Gay Henson, she runs the Engineering Association that represents the technicians and engineers inside TVA. Welcome. Thank you. Cheers.
Hey. So I wanted to first say thank you, Ken, for inviting us here today, and Mike and Justin and Congressman Tim back there. Yeah, Tim was with us on August 3rd when we met with the president. We had about 6 workers from TVA that came in that day, and it was an awesome experience just to get to be in the office. I mean, in the place where so many decisions have been made too for our country. But thank you, and I appreciate the hospitality that Drew and Maddie showed us this morning. And I've got 2 workers over here, if y'all will wave, David Littlejohn and Wendy. These are 2 workers that were affected by this and got their jobs back, and so they're just proud as they can be. So I'm Gay Henson. I'm president of the Engineering Association, Local 1937, and I represent 220 workers in IT whose jobs were saved this past August 3rd when President Donald Trump signed an executive order limiting government agencies' use of H-1B visa workers. As a result of that executive order, TVA has reversed course. We thank President Trump for his actions on our behalf, and TVA and President Trump and you, Mr. Cuccinelli, we are very grateful, very grateful. Over the past several weeks, TVA is returning impacted workers to their place in their organizations. They have also established a joint union management team which will stand up the new IT organization moving forward. Together, we will build the future of IT at TVA. We thank TVA for their willingness to work in a collaborative way to rebuild IT back even better. The impacts of the executive order are very widespread. Tech workers across America have reached out to me to say they appreciate that we took this fight forward, and they appreciate the work that everybody's done, and it will directly benefit them. Last week, the Department of Labor and the Department of Homeland Security issued 2 new regulations that are designed to further reform the H-1B visa program and prevent abuse, closing loopholes that were misused by employers and third-party contractors to the detriment of U.S. workers and H-1B visa workers, and also adjusting H-1B visas prevailing wages. This added oversight is certainly a step in the right direction. The EA is hopeful that these are the first steps towards a comprehensive overhaul for the entire H-1B program. We thank you, Ken Cuccinelli and Eugene Scalia, who's not here today, but we appreciate that, for your continued support of IT workers and TVA and beyond. TVA, we thank you. We thank you for your willingness to listen to us, for you allowing our voices to be heard, the workers' voices, and for your willingness to partner with us to make TVA better tomorrow than it is today. Again, we are forever grateful for the turnaround in what was really a desperate situation for us. And on behalf of the Engineering Association, IFPT 1937, all the workers at TVA, thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gay, and thank you to all of our speakers. I would be missing, Congressman Burchett mentioned Mayor Jacobs. Certainly appreciated him coming today. We partner a lot with obviously Knox County. I also wanted to mention that the CEO of the Knoxville Chamber of Commerce, Mike Odom, is standing in the back. Wave if you would there, Mike. We appreciate all the partnerships we've got there with the Chamber of Commerce on creating jobs and partnering with them. And now I'd like to just ask our guests to come up if there are any questions from members of the media who are assembled here today.
Yeah, I'll repeat it. Yeah, I won't take offense.
Early voting began here in Tennessee.
Yep.
The president has been pretty, not shy to say that the election, the total of the security concerns, mail-in ballots, and everything. Do you have any concerns?
Well, certainly shy is not a word that I would associate with President Trump. But I visited one of your early voting locations today outside of Nashville, and it was busy, as one would expect on the first day of voting. I know the Secretary of State, I think, is hitting 5 different locations today, so he's getting around as well. We have taken more steps than ever before. You compare to 4 years ago, the difference is night and day in the cooperation and communication and partnership between the federal and state officials to protect and preserve the election. And by that we mean, first and foremost, the president's priority is that Americans will decide American elections. And we have succeeded in closing out foreign interlopers, if you will, and communicating what they've done and tried to do to state and local officials, something that just didn't happen 4 years ago. The president has expressed concerns about particularly other types of vote fraud that can happen. I would note, and you all in the media can help us drive this point home, elections under the Constitution are run by states. It's very explicit about that. We do everything we can to help and be supportive. In the Department of Homeland Security, that falls on CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, and they've done a great job of bringing together across party lines and without political inhibitions, really, partnerships across the country to make us as safe as we can at the federal level. At the state level, you have 50 entirely different systems. And in some of them, to your question, they affirmatively mail out ballots. And that's a concern you've heard the president talk about. I would narrow that concern down even more to be states that are doing things for the first time in this election. So it's one thing to alter your system. It's quite another to alter it right in front of the biggest election in the whole cycle. And that is an area of concern. Can they handle it? Can they implement the security measures that even they would like to implement? And what effect will that have on security overall for the election? Those are concerns we have. There are best practices that we facilitate sharing with some of those states from other states that have been doing it longer. But you've seen some stories of localized problems that have happened already. But I would emphasize that so far they're localized. We can't stop everything. Everything isn't going to run perfectly. But so long as we keep those quarantined, if you will, and learn the lessons very quickly and spread them to other states to try and avoid the same sorts of problems, I think that not only the president's concerns, but everybody else in this country who wants Americans to determine the outcome of American elections will be very satisfied. But we've got a few weeks to go yet on that. And I would note our job doesn't stop when the polls close. Counting is going to be slower this year. That is not a mistake. And those of you in the media can be helpful to us by communicating that. It is not likely, unless it's a landslide, that we'll know the winner of the presidential election on election night because of slower counting. That is not a mistake. That is not things aren't working. That is how they work now to allow for greater security and certainty. We have systems in place now that are just slower to count. That's the cost of the greater security and the auditability of the systems we see being advanced across the country. So that's the trade-off. It's not perfect. We'll do the best we can to help our state partners, but ultimately the responsibility lies with them to police the potential for fraudulent voting. Thank you for your question. It's a very appropriate day for it in Tennessee. So, any other questions? It's no requirement. Well, thank you again, Mike. I want to thank you all at TVA for hosting us. Congressman, it's good to see you on your turf rather than inside the Beltway. I'm sure you appreciate that too. Gay, it's good to see you again, and it's been a pleasure working with you in parallel. And glad to see some American workers who are solidly doing their jobs once again, thanks to this kind of an approach that the president has championed and TVA has picked up as well, and that Congressman Burchett talked about, and something he's championed as well. So this is a great direction for not just TVA, but the United States of America, and it's something this president is very dedicated to, and I'm very proud to help him implement these sorts of policies. So thank you all very much. Have a great day, and again, thank you for hosting us.